Whenever the media talk about children with autism, and we're as guilty about this as anybody, the focus is almost exclusively on the child themselves, with good reason. But there is a very important aspect of being an autism family that isn't spoken about often enough, and it's time we talked about it. Hello and welcome to another entry in our Parenting Autism series. This is a series where we take a look through some of the challenges and issues related to being part of an autism family. If that sounds like something that would be beneficial to you, please make sure you pop a nice big like on this video, subscribe to the channel and check us out on all the social media stuff that should be appearing along the bottom of the screen for you now. On today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the impact that having a child with autism can have on parents. It's something that I've never been particularly comfortable talking about. Anna's certainly not particularly comfortable talking about. But if we're going to do our mission on this series justice, which is to raise awareness of all of the issues and challenges related to autism, we're not just going to be talking about the stuff that people usually talk about. We want to be talking about the stuff that we needed back when we were struggling at our very most. We always go back and look at the time when Andy was refusing school, and one of our biggest challenges at the time is that we were really struggling and just didn't know what to do. Andy was eventually diagnosed with anxiety, and that being the root cause of him refusing to go to school. But what was never diagnosed was the anxiety that myself and Anna obviously felt as part of the same thing. I say not diagnosed. We never went to the doctors to talk about it formally. If you look through the documentation from our social worker and from the various professionals at that time, those things certainly are referenced. If you look back at the comments on the videos that we were making at the time, people are definitely talking about those things. You can tell watching back on those videos now just how anxious we were, just how much we were struggling just with day-to-day life at that point. One of the challenges that developed the further into the school refusal that we had was it was referred to in the meetings that we had as like a cycle of anxiety, where Andy's anxiety initially prevented him going to school, which then made me and Anna anxious because he wasn't going to school. What on earth are we supposed to do about that? And he would then pick up on our anxiety, and that would increase his, which would then increase ours, and we got ourselves trapped in this cycle of anxiety. And it was a very, very challenging time. That at the time, if you watch back over those videos, although we never referenced it, you could tell we were struggling, but we never talked about it because at the time we didn't feel comfortable. I think the time has now come to talk about some of the things that went on back then. As with all the other videos in this series, we're going to take the form of, we'll have a little bit of chat about how our situation was, and then we're going to go straight into a huge pile of questions that you guys have sent in off the back of the question that we posed on our community page earlier in the week regarding the parents' mental health when you have a child who has autism. Before we get into that though, I do just want to say a big thank you to the sponsor of this video, BetterHelp, lelujo.fm BetterHelp, as you can see along the bottom of the screen there. If you're not familiar with BetterHelp, and to be honest, if you watch much YouTube, you probably are. I've seen them appearing on quite a few videos recently. BetterHelp are an online counselling service where you can sign up for therapy through your mobile phone, which you can have 24/7, as much or as little counselling and therapy as you need for a much cheaper price than you'd pay to go along to traditional therapy. It averages at about $60 a week, which if you're in a situation where you can't afford that, there is financial help available through the link below as well. So if it's something that you feel that you would benefit from, then you definitely should be checking it out. It's something that I think if we'd have known it existed at the time, it definitely could have been a help to us. We were obviously, or Anna particularly, was trapped in the house. Andy was was refusing school, Andy was refusing to go out anywhere, Anna couldn't get out. There would have been no way for her to go along to see a GP, to have a traditional appointment, to get referred along to traditional therapy. And even if that had have been possible, there's no way at all she could have slotted in an hour and a half session once a week, or however often it would need to be, because that time just didn't exist in our circumstances. Something like BetterHelp could have helped her out enormously, because she could have scheduled sessions in through her phone that could either be done by text or by actually speaking to someone in a Skype style call situation. She could have scheduled that for a time that was convenient to her. And even if she couldn't get those sessions in, you can still send messages 24/7, get replies, and even do the whole therapy thing by text if that's something you feel more comfortable with. So if it feels like something that you'd benefit from as well, as I say, the link is down below, lelujo.fm/betterhelp. Check it out, and hopefully it can be there to help you if you find yourself in a situation like the one we were in and we didn't know where to turn. So let's jump into the questions, and as ever, you guys have sent in a huge number of questions on this topic. It's clearly something that a lot of people can relate to. As ever, I've tried to pick as many of the questions as I can possibly fit into a reasonable length video. There's not a chance I'm going to be able to get through all of them. If people have asked similar questions, I've only picked one. So if you don't see your question on the screen throughout this video, my apologies, but it just wouldn't be realistic to answer every single question that came in, especially when some of them are very similar. So please don't feel that you've been dissed by us. And please submit questions for future videos, and we'll try and get round as many people and answer as many questions as we can in future videos in this series. But let's get going. So Mycroft Holmes starts us off by saying, is there ever a moment that you snapped and shouted at Andy? I guess we're doing honesty box stuff, aren't we? We're not going to sugarcoat this just because it's on the internet. And so the answer is yeah, of course there is. We're human. We try not to, and whenever we have, we've apologized afterwards. We feel bad about it. We talk to each other about why it happened. But yeah, there are I don't want to say there are loads of times, but again, being really honest about it, there probably have been over the years loads of times where we've snapped at him, where we've had to shout, and we're not proud of that fact. But sometimes, being human beings, if the siblings of a child with autism feel like they're missing out on something or can't do something because of a sibling with autism, how do you as a parent deal with the situation? This is probably one of the things I struggle with most of all, because we're a blended family. For those of you who don't know our family situation, I was previously married. I have 2 children from my previous marriage, Lucy and Amy. Lucy's 16. Amy is just about to turn 12. Andy is Anna's son from her previous relationship, and he's about to turn 14. So he's slotted in to be the middle child in this blended family that we've got. And that all happened 6 years ago. So when Lucy was 10, Amy was 4. So Lucy in particular remembers how different life was before we became an autism family. Amy kind of is used to this being the way it always is, but before Andy, we would go on holidays, and we don't do that now because it wouldn't work. So we previously had holidays to Mallorca, to Tenerife, to various camping trips in this country, and Lucy loved those holidays, and she hasn't been on holiday with me for 7 years because it wouldn't work for us as a family, and I wouldn't feel comfortable just taking the girls and leaving Anna and Andy at home, and that's perhaps an issue I need to work out. Perhaps I'm wrong there. It's something me and Anna talk about and we struggle with a little bit, and there is an argument where I could perhaps take them, or perhaps we should try harder to find a solution that works for everybody. Luckily, Lucy doesn't miss out on holidays. She still gets to do that kind of thing with her mum, but she's missing out on those, and Amy as well. They're missing out on those memories of holidays with me, and that's just one example of one of those things. And the only way I can deal with it, and I don't know if it's the right way, I don't know. Time will tell how this all stacks up. When we look back on it 5 years, 10 years time, and we talk about this kind of stuff when they're adults and I'm trying to fix all the messes I've made over the years, I guess. I just try the best I can. I spread myself out, as much as I can and try and act in everyone's best interests all the time. And sometimes I get it right, sometimes I get it wrong. But I think everyone involved can see that I'm trying and that I have the best intentions. So, yeah, I mess up sometimes, but hopefully they won't hold it against me. There's no easy answer to that one. Did Anna lose support from anyone after Andy was diagnosed with autism? I'm going to assume you mean like friends and family, and no, it's challenging though, because her family try. You know, you've seen Short Stay on the channel before. You've seen Anna's mum on the channel before. Certainly when Anna was still living in Nottingham, near where they live. I mean, Short Stay would be at her house 2-3 evenings a week to meet Andy home from school while Anna was off doing college. He was incredibly supportive, absolute hero. Her mum would look after Andy as often as she needed to. The problem didn't come when Andy was diagnosed with autism. It came when we picked Anna and Andy up and moved them away from that supportive environment that they had and sort of plonked down 50 miles away from there. So it's not realistic to have a family just drop round a couple of days a week to help out. And my family, we've never really trained them into how to look after Andy. It's not something, I think initially it was something that Anna, and probably me as well, wouldn't have been comfortable with doing. And as time has gone on, it's just kind of been, well, this is the way it is. If Andy needs looking after, we get someone from Anna's family. And we've never even asked. We've never even, and you know, even if I was to say, if I asked my dad to babysit Andy for the evening, he would of course say yes, but there would be so much we'd have to go through with him about how that works that it's kind of, I guess, taking the easy out. It's easier to just buy Short Stay train ticket and get him to come over. And Anna knows and trusts that he's looked after him so many times before, whereas if it was my dad who's never looked after him on his own before, Anna would be anxious and should be stressed out by it. Nobody has ever withdrawn their support, but it's much harder to feel comfortable accessing the support when you know it's such specialist support that you're asking for. Have people ever told you how to manage Andy's behaviour when they don't know how? Yeah, all the time. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that happens. You get it in the street from random strangers, people tutting or telling you to just, you know, just tell him off, just make him do what you want him to do. Can you ask your kid not to do that if he's, I don't know, sat on the bus and he's tapping the chair in front of him? Yeah, we can ask him, but he's almost certainly not going to listen. What do you want us to do? Hold his hands down? And the most common place we probably get it is here in the YouTube comments. People saying, well, why don't you just stop him from doing that? Why don't you just tell him what to do? Or, I mean, you get the real nutters who come in and say, why don't you just smack him until he does what he's told? And yeah, we get it all the time. We know best. We're not to the point where we're really stubborn with people who do have a valid opinion. Like, we work very closely with all the professionals who work with Andy. We talk with other autism families. We interact with them down in the comments of these videos. We talk on our Facebook group. We talk to people in real life. But yeah, it depends how the advice is coming. If it's well-meaning advice, we'll usually just sort of nod and smile and disregard it. But more often than not, it's just sort of unsolicited, quite aggressive, quite unhelpful advice, and you just have to learn to develop a thick skin to that. Has our social life changed at all? Yeah, massively. just massively. Just thinking in terms of normal stuff that normal couples can do, like going out for dinner, having date night, I don't know, going to the cinema, nipping to the shops together, meeting friends anywhere, ever. None of this stuff is really realistic, because for us to be able to do any of that, we either need a babysitter, which we've already said we can't get unless we get someone over from Nottingham, or go through a whole big training process with somebody local, somebody nearer to where we live, or we have to plan it, I don't know, at least a week in advance, ready for Andy to prepare himself for it. As an example, when you're watching this video, tomorrow is Father's Day. So we're going out for a Father's Day meal. We've had to be preparing Andy for where we're going, how we're going to get there, what time we're going to go, who else is going to be there for like 5 days. And even then, he's not going to enjoy the process. We're probably not going to be able to stay for very long. So yeah, it changes every aspect of our social life. We can either go out and do things independently of each other, or we can stay at home. The two of us can't really go out together ever unless Andy's at respite, and that's why the respite care is so important. Have I ever had to turn anything down because I have to be Andy's carer? I mean, the most obvious thing, not necessarily turning down, but the most obvious thing is I had to give up being a teacher because it's such a inflexible, structured job that it just didn't work with being a carer for a child with autism. I needed to be at work during school times. Obviously, I was a teacher, which meant Andy's appointments and things I couldn't go to. We couldn't take him to medical appointments without me having to take time off work. And yeah, you can get a little bit of time off work for stuff like that as a teacher, but realistically, you're looking at they'll start being a little bit grumpy about it if you need to have more than 3 mornings off over the course of the year. And sometimes a morning off isn't even enough. If we've got an appointment in Boston, which is an hour there, an hour back, and the appointment's at 11 o'clock, for example, we need to be leaving home at like 9:30, 10 o'clock-ish to get there. There's no point me going to school for an hour, so I'd have the morning off. But then by the time we've got there for 11 o'clock, half an hour's worth of appointment, and then another hour to hour and a half of things he has to do around Boston to agree to go, and then an hour home, and the whole school day is gone. So for one doctor's appointment, that would mean an entire day off work, which just doesn't work with teaching. So I had to give up my career in order to be able to be Andy's carer. But I mean, other little things as well, like, I don't know, they sound so insignificant, but they build up. And, Fridays at gaming conventions. I've never been to Eurogamer Expo on a Friday, but partly because I always used to be a teacher, but then also partly because we can't get people to look after Andy for that long. We wanted to go to Gamescom in Germany last year. Couldn't find anyone to look after Andy for 5 days. Didn't really want to leave him for 5 days with anyone, so we didn't really look that hard. And there's just lots of little things, lots of little sacrifices that you make day in, day out. How do you deal with the isolation and confinement that comes with being parent to an autistic child? One of the most important things for us, we've already mentioned the gaming conventions and getting away sometimes. Respite care is a massively important thing, but I think one of the things that's helped us the most is starting this YouTube channel. The fact that we now have someone to talk to every day. I mean, I don't leave the house very often, but I always have you guys to talk to, and we can always chat down in the comments, and we're always chatting on Twitter and on Facebook. And it just keeps that network of people around me. Yes, I don't see them face to face. Yes, we're not going down the pub for drinks or meeting up for a coffee, but I'm not doing that with anybody anymore. Neither is Anna. All of even my real life friends, pretty much our only contact is via social media. And all I've done is added to that group, and there's more and more people coming into that group all the time. And that has been just massively important. I think without social media, without the internet, without this YouTube channel, I wouldn't have been able to give up teaching in the first place, which would have led to a whole heap of just difficult stuff, because I don't know what we would have done in that circumstance. But also, I think I'd have gone mad over the last year if I didn't have this as an outlet to be able to talk to other people. How has your mental health changed? So mine and Anna's mental health. I think we probably instantly, arms crossed, gets defensive. Oh, don't want to talk about this. But, as I said at the start, sometimes these things have got to be talked about. I've never, ever spoken to a doctor about any of this kind of stuff. I'm fairly confident that I don't have depression. I don't have anxiety, certainly not as a medical condition. I sometimes get anxious, but I don't think I've got anxiety, and I think there is a significant difference between the two. Anna has seen a doctor about it before. She has been diagnosed with anxiety before, and it got a lot worse when Andy was off school, because obviously, like we said before, they were feeding off each other. There was just this cycle of anxiety going around and around and around and around, and they were both feeding off each other. And one of the major things that allowed us to break that cycle was me being here to physically break the cycle, to separate them, to send Anna out for a walk with Dave so that she had just half hour, an hour to just be away from Andy, or for me to take Andy out for a church without Anna there, so he had some time away from her, and literally just breaking that cycle of the two of them bringing each other down. It made all the difference in the world, and pretty soon he was back at school, Anna was back at uni, and all was good again. But yeah, there's a lot of ups and downs as a parent. I mean, as any parent, but particularly as a parent of a child with autism, particularly if they have problems communicating, it can be really difficult, and you can often find yourself feeling a little bit lost, a little bit directionless, a lot bit frustrated at them, at life, at the hand you've been dealt. And I don't want to have this come across as a autism's rubbish, feel sorry for us. That's not what this video is supposed to be, because obviously we've got a whole back catalogue of videos showing some of the really awesome stuff that we've experienced and that Andy's been able to experience and that we've shared together as a result of being an autism family. There are definitely major positives, but it can be really challenging at times. And if you are susceptible to any kind of mental health problems, which I think pretty much everybody is, everyone has a limit, everyone has a line that once it's crossed, they need to reach out for some help. And there's certainly been very challenging times for all of us over recent years. Has there ever been a time in you knowing Andy and Anna where you felt like packing up and leaving Andy and Anna because you couldn't cope? God, come at me with the hard questions, why don't you? There has never been a point where I've actually been reaching for a bag to pack and leave. But me and Anna have talked before, both in private and on the channel, about how neither of us are sure how much longer we would have survived as a family if circumstances hadn't changed, if Andy hadn't gone back to school, if we hadn't have got back to some kind of semblance of normality. There were certainly times when things were really bad where the thought crosses your mind, particularly, and it sounds horrible, it's going to make me sound like such a monster, but I'm not married to Anna, I'm not Andy's biological dad. There were dark moments where I would think, I don't have to do this. But they were only ever moments, and it was never something that I seriously considered, and there were always a lot more reasons to stay than there were to go. But I think anyone who's ever been in a long-term relationship who says they've never even thought about it, I can't believe that's true. I think everyone from time to time thinks, wouldn't it be easier if, or wouldn't I be happier if, or maybe what if? Everyone has those thoughts from time to time. So yeah, it's natural to have those thoughts. But was there ever a time where it was a toss of a coin whether I stayed or whether I left? No, it never got to that point. I never entertained the idea for longer than just a fleeting thought of, don't have to do this, or I could just leave. And it was like, yeah, but I'm not going to. Obviously, I'm not going to. So, yeah, it crosses your mind. But, it was a test of us as a family. It just proves that we were meant to be together as a unit, because it all clicked into place so quickly when we first met. And at no point have we been in danger of unclicking. I don't think, not serious danger anyway. Which links into this next question, actually. Has the impact of autism in the family made you guys stronger? Absolutely. I'm pretty confident at this point that me and Anna can take on anything. We can just take on the world. Come at us. You can't bring us down. You can't keep us down. It's just, I think we've proven that over 6 years together. I think there are a lot of people, a lot of couples who wouldn't have survived what we've been through over the last 6 years. And we did. And, cliche o'clock, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I should probably sing that line. But yeah, I absolutely think we're much stronger, much closer, much more tightly knit as a group than we would have been otherwise. I'm scanning through the questions now. There's a lot of these that are kind of asking similar stuff to what I've already answered. Maybe they weren't the original questions, but I've kind of already given the answers to them. So I'm skipping quite a few here. So again, apologies if I'm skipping yours. Perhaps we'll get yours answered next week once we decide what the topic for next week is. By the way, let us know down in the comments what you'd like next week's topic to be. But last question for today. What do you think the worst thing for a parent is to do when they're told their child has autism? I think there's two things that would be a really bad reaction for a parent to have. The first one is to look for a cure, which for people who don't know what autism is, and I was very much in this group when I first met Anna, I didn't really understand. So one of the first things I looked up about it was, does it get better? Can you cure it? Can you change it? What treatment is there for it? Me and Anna even had this conversation before we were even living together, where I said, if they came out with a pill tomorrow that cures autism, would you give it to him? And I couldn't understand at the time why she said no. Now, I completely understand why she said no, and I wouldn't give it to him either, because now, as I've got more into understanding what autism is, I understand that it's not something that's happening to him. It's part of him. It's part of his personality, part of his brain. If you take autism away, you take a big chunk of Andy away, and he'd be a completely different kid, and no one wants that. I don't know if I've ever said this on the internet before, but certainly in private, I've said, trying to cure a kid who has autism, or anyone who has autism, we always talk about children, obviously it affects adults too, but trying to cure somebody with autism is like asking a parent, right, here's a gun and here's a magic child cloning machine. Are you going to kill your kid if we can immediately replace it with another kid who doesn't have autism, who's a bit like the one you had before? And obviously if you frame it like that, every single parent says, well, no, of course I'm not going to kill my child. But the way I would see it, and this is probably quite controversial stuff that I maybe shouldn't be saying on the internet, but the way I would see it, as if you took that huge element of who Andy is away, you are effectively killing Andy as he is now and replacing him with another kid who looks like him and is a bit like him, but he's not the same. So don't look for a cure when you're first told that your kid has autism. But equally, try not to panic. Try not to see it as the end of the world. I know, certainly if this video is the only thing you've ever watched on this topic, there is the potential to see a lot of what I've said as really doom and gloom, end of the world stuff. If you can't imagine a world where you don't get to go out for a drink on a Friday night and see your mates, your world's going to change. But it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. I think my life, being really selfish looking at this for a second now, my life has changed massively in the 6 years that Anna has lived here. But my life today is a whole lot better than it was 10 years ago, before I even knew Anna and Andy existed. It's just leaps and bounds better. Everything about my life is better. So it would be very easy when you're told that your child has autism to view it as the end of the world. But I think we're proof that it's absolutely not the end of the world. And I love my life. I have a great life. And guess what? Got a child with autism. So it's not the end of the world. And you certainly don't need to be looking to cure it. So I think that's where we are going to close things down. I know this has been another really long video. I think we just now need to accept that the videos in this series are going to be long ones, because I still haven't even scratched the surface on this topic. I don't think it's another one that we're probably going to have to revisit. I think what we'll probably do is go all the way back around again. Maybe we'll do this full series. We'll wait 6 months. We'll go back and do a season 2 where we go back and do the same topics again, but in a different way. I don't know, we'll figure something out. But we are going to end things there. Thank you once again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. Their details are all down in the description, so if you are enticed by the stuff that we talked about before, make sure you click on their link, check them out. Thank you to you guys for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more videos in this series, plus our daily family vlogs, and thank you very much for watching.